I want to show you something cool. Take a look at this picture.
What am I looking at?
You're looking at the new maximize window screen in Windows 11. I think I'm on one of the insider builds.
Wait, what is that?
So look, for the people who are playing along at home and can't see the picture, well, it's probably the show art this week, I'm going to bet. But also, instead of just maximizing the window, it lets you like fancy zone your window into different panes. So like I can make this window go in the middle of two big wide panes, or I can put it in the corners, or I can put it in the half and then put two other ones in the corners. And I can control it all from the maximize button.
Does that happen? Do you literally just click maximize and you get this grid?
I hover over
every time?
It's a hover over.
I see.
I like this a lot.
Hang on.
Yes, hello.
So it's like, okay, this is a 3x2 grid.
Yeah.
The first option is like two vertical panes side by side. The second one is like a fat vertical pane and a thin one.
Yeah, like one's 50-50 vertical split, one's a 2/3, 1/3 vertical split.
But hang on, this is the maximize button for a single window, where do the multiple panes come in?
Well, then when I maximize another window, then I can put it in the adjacent pane.
I see. Man.
It's fancy, right?
Are you saying that Windows 11 has finally delivered its first worthwhile feature?
I like that the sound thing works now.
Wait, what sound thing?
The directing sound to specific outputs from a single application works, right? You can do that on the OS level.
You're talking about the thing where it's like, hey, I want Chrome to come out of this device and like OBS to go out of this one, and that actually works now?
Yeah, that's a low percentage feature.
I use that app volume thing all the time, and it never works.
Yeah.
Like it literally just arbitrarily works or doesn't.
So that works. And Notepad dark mode is fantastic.
Notepad dark mode, what? I want to see that too.
Okay.
Actually, don't show me that. I'm happy with Windows 10. I'm good where I am. I am not going to upgrade.
Are you sure?
Nothing you have can entice me.
Pretty good. I'm going to show you stuff that I probably shouldn't show you here too.
Dude, Notepad dark mode? Really?
Notepad dark mode.
I'm just going to make that the title of this episode.
Check that shit out. It's dark.
Man.
Uh-huh.
Wait, what is this font? What is this font?
That is Lucida console.
Oh, I mean, like, how are you using like a high pixel density?
It's a updated version of Notepad.
I know, but like, am I the only one? Would it surprise you to know that every time I reinstall Windows, which is not that often these days, to be clear, but the first time I open Notepad for anything, I immediately go into the font settings and change it back to fixed sys.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And also, you are insane.
Notepad is for the fixed sys is for Notepad and vice versa. And
okay. Okay. So
I was using Windows 3.1.1 for work groups not 4 hours ago and opened a file in Notepad there. Fixed sys was good enough for Windows 3.1.1. Should be good enough for anybody.
Okay, so this is the full disclosure. This is Notepad 11.21.11.0.0 preview, which is, I think, part of an insider track build in Windows 11. I am a person that uses Notepad for this, just like if I need to jot some stuff down and keep a running list where the window is always really easily accessible. Mm-hmm. I sometimes use OneNote or something like that for that, but for the most part, Notepad is where I go. And then if I need to keep it, I dump it into Notepad or OneNote or something else.
Notepad is pretty much just for opening and viewing ASCII text files and maybe jotting something in briefly for me at this point. But like I've got tiers of other text editors that are better. I mean,
yeah, if I'm editing, I use Notepad++ or something like that.
I've got Notepad++. I've got Sublime.
Wow.
Got a couple of Simple Note clients because there are no good Simple Note clients out there. So I just oscillate between the less bad ones.
I think at some point I installed Nano on the terminal.
Oh yeah, dude, I've got an old ass Windows build of Nano right here. Let me see what it is. GNU Nano 2.5.3, and they are up to 5 point something now. So
oh wow,
that's whatever got built for Windows and put in chocolatey.
So anyway, the upshot is this maximize window thing is the friggin' business, and I'm very excited about it.
Honestly, it is one of the better things I have seen out of Windows 11 so far. I'm not going to lie. Notepad dark mode also pretty good. Actually, can you see, does fixed sys work in dark mode? Because if not,
is this going to be a deal breaker for you?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see.
Dude, Notepad has looked the same for 20. When did I start using Windows? 27 years?
Yeah, that seems right. I don't see a fixed sys.
Oh, what the fuck?
I'm sure I can do like Courier or something. Like there's Courier new if you want to get crazy.
Nope. Low res, monospaced only.
Oh, no, thank you, sir.
Is there really no fixed sys in Notepad anymore?
I mean, it's probably just because I don't have fixsys installed on my computer.
I bet you could install. I can hook you up. I can hook you up. Hey, let's talk later. I can hook you up.
It's just the TrueType list is what it looks like. It's like all the non-Adobe fonts on my system.
Monospace or nothing. I don't know what to tell you.
Ugh. Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. I'm still scandalized by that that you dropped.
Look, man,
on the way in here. Come on.
When I have a fixed width terminal, I use a fixed width font. When I have a modern computer with modern ass fonts, I use a modern ass font.
How many times do you open a file in Notepad and want all the columns to line up?
Never. Literally never.
All right, let's move on.
That's what Notepad++ is for, man. Okay, anyway. What are we talking about today, Brad? What's going on? Anything happening with you? Anything exciting going on?
We're talking about you here, actually.
Oh, more navel gazing. Great.
Will Smith, this is your life, at least for the last, what's it been now?
6 months, 7 months, 8 months. May. I started in the middle of May
last year at Stray Bombay.
Indeed. Makers such makers of the our first title, The Anacrusis, out now in early access on Steam, Xbox, Windows, Microsoft Store, and Game Pass.
You did this last week. You can't do this multiple.
No, I got to do it at the start of the show where people are actually listening.
Cannot do this 2 weeks in a row. I promise Will is not here to shill his new... Wait. You were literally taking a drink out of an Anacrusis thermal mug, right? As I was saying.
It was our launch gift. Let me just take off my t-shirt and the Anacrusis shirt will be on.
Oh my God.
That would be really funny, but we don't have those. Anyway.
The idea was not for you to come in here and shill your game again.
https://j.mp/theanacrusis.
The idea here was, I mean, A, very busy week for you.
It has been.
Getting this thing out the door. B, I have
the entire team, in fairness.
I've spent a large chunk of a career covering video games, wondering about the development of video games, asking people questions who make video games.
Me too, it turns out.
Well, okay, sure. You've also been in that world.
Not as much as you, though.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, like, we figured, why not just roll in here and have an informal chat about your first time shipping a video game and let me ask a bunch of questions about technical nitty gritty, about all the different stuff you did along the way. I mean, we chit chat all the time, obviously, as we're doing the show and stuff. And a bunch of the stuff you have told me about behind the scenes sounds like exactly where I would like to live. In terms of like writing shell scripts and having to I'm trying to think like that flat page press kit fork that you got that one time that you were dealing with, and like setting up remote playtests with PCs that are in another state and stuff like those all sound like really fun technical challenges to solve.
I got to learn how to use our hosting provider to do domain aliases the other day.
Oh. Wait,
so that was fun.
Talking about CNAMEs here? What do you want to do?
No. That would be easy. That would be like the 90s way to do it. We're using Netlify, and I had to build the redirects using they're a React host. So we were basically I had to just learn a little. That was easy, but it took a little bit of Googling.
Is this? I wanted to ask is this kind of situation where like underneath Netlify are all those 90s technologies that run things anyway?
So, I mean, probably, I don't know. It like basically Netlify is a single service. What is it you call them when you pre-render the web pages and then just give a flat file and then it serves the flat files?
Oh, they're on the Jamstack.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes,
so anyway,
that is what that is. Actually, that's like there is a move back toward like pre-rendered flat page serving. Yeah, from what I understand.
So basically, in order to use subdomains on the Netlify controlled domains, we have to write these little tiny files that basically tell the single serving containers for subdomains where to point. And that's how you get from support.theanacrusis.com to our Zendesk group, if you're curious.
What are you writing in those little files? Is that some YAML? Is it TOML?
Hold on a second and I'll tell you.
Oh, do you have them? Did you write them?
Oh yeah, I had to write them. They're stupid easy. It's like there's no complexity at all here.
This is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. all the little glue that you have had to apply to different creaky joints to make things stick together.
I mean, it's so part of like there's a thing about being like working at a small studio, right, where you basically learn how to do like the job that I have would be like 4 different departments jobs at like Activision and Bungie or something like that, or Activision and Blizzard, and as a result, but we don't have 4 different people, 4 different departments full of people. We have me and Chet, and kind of like we figure it out, right?
Yeah, I mean that is also the way that I have worked for the last 13, 14 years on small teams, right? Like it's like there aren't enough people to do all these jobs, but so it's like I'm over here maintaining relationships with PR people at publishers 1 minute and like messing with video codecs the next, right?
So literally all of this is like this file isn't even like a syntax. It's just formats for the expected URLs coming in, and then the redirect URL, and then what kind of redirect it is with an exclamation point at the end. It is very simple stuff.
Okay. That's
nothing complicated or fun.
No markup.
And just to be clear, like it's a 20-person studio. We have just over 20 people working on the game. It started out as 4 people and then grew. Most of what was in like the launch trailer this summer was made with 12 people. And then we hired up over from the time I started until now. And we're up to about 20 people these days.
Okay. So
it's a big studio, and like the people who make the game are smart and have skills and are able to do things. So
it's nice to work with people who are smart and have skills and are able to do things.
Yes, it's like that. Look, words are hard at this point, but yeah, no, it's good. It's been good, and like it is awesome. Like I look at. So there's a thing that Rami Ismail has always said, which is like every game that ships is a miracle.
Mm-hmm. I've heard similar from other developers for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it is 100% true. There was a period of time this summer when every single external playtest we had in, like some of them didn't get past the first level. The game was so difficult. We were trying to figure out what the difference between difficulty and intent, like how to separate difficulty and intensity of the experience, like difficulty of the combat and intensity of the experience. And as a result, we were just kicking people's asses over and over again. And like that was in August when we were thinking we were going to ship in the fall sometime. And, you know, it was scary because we were like, if we ship the game like this with people who are like on voice chat and friends of ours and willing to take some abuse because they're friends of ours and want to help us make the game better, like we're going to be hosed if we release the game like this when people can't get past the first level. But like we sat down and we everybody got together and people applied their big brains to it, and like we figured it out. And like I feel like we're in a pretty good place for an early access game with like the core game loop, like the actual combat and the gameplay is pretty fun.
So I mean, obviously you came in like what 7-8 months before ship, so the game was largely there. I mean, not entirely, but it was largely there when you came in. But was Stray Bombay before the pandemic? Were they in office like a fully local in-person operation?
Yeah, so Stray Bombay started early in 2019 as a really small team. Like Kim Vol and Chet and a handful of other people came in to do like the initial concepting and prototyping and stuff like that. And they played a lot of like gray box. You know, here's the Chet posts screenshots of the old builds on Twitter fairly regularly with like gray box environments and stick figure Unreal Store assets or something, just the kind of mannequin that ships with the engine and characters coming at you. But yeah, they did a ton of prototyping because the thing that they realized is that the director, like this kind of game, the co-op 4-player PvE game lives and dies by the quality of the director and like the cadence and the feel of the game that creates for you.
Right. So were they an all in-person operation at that point?
Yeah, we have offices in Seattle still.
So before, was it the pandemic that started decentralizing things, or were they already starting to hire remotely before then?
No, so we were everybody comes into the office every day studio for a long time.
That's what I was because
or until March of 2020, at which point everybody was like, hey, like we're not going to make anybody come to the office because that's inhumane if you have kids or family members or whatever, or you just don't want to expose yourself to this bad disease,
right?
Then we had I think when the pandemic started, we had just hired somebody who was going to move up from LA, and he was like, hey, the border situation, he's Canadian. the border situation is such that if I move, I'd like to move to Canada so that I can be with my family and I can get help with family stuff and some other things. And they had a team meeting. This was before I started. They had a team meeting and we're like, hey, we're, if so-and-so is able to work remotely, we think everybody should work remotely. How do we feel about this? And everybody kind of like voted and we're like, yeah, let's figure out remote. Like I think the thing that they did, I don't know if they did it intentionally because I wasn't there, but it seems like that like we're pretty egalitarian about how things work internally, and everybody, it's flat, so everybody gets to have input on things if they care to. But also it was important that if somebody wants to be remote, then everybody has that option as well. And so now we have people, I'm in San Francisco, we have people in Texas and on the East Coast, and we have people we have a person in Norway now.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify because like some developers start out that way. Like I distinctly remember seeing the first Ori and the Blind Forest at E3 and Moon at that time. Like it was kind of part of the pitch. It's like they literally pitched this as like, hey, this is a game made entirely by people who work remotely. Like some of them work in completely different countries around the world. Some of them have never met face to face before. Like it was a whole thing. It was like the narrative behind that game.
We did that at Foo. I didn't meet. I still haven't met the artist that we worked with there in person. No, he's in Norway
at Foo.
At Foo,
and so you paid this person for some
5
length
years.
of time. Never actually met them. That's wild.
But I mean, we spent a lot of time in the VR studio, which is weird. I didn't meet our lead developer there until we'd been going for a year and a half almost when we went to XO together. And
the reason I ask all this is because we both worked at Whiskey Media, obviously. Mm-hmm. Like you also did Foo. Like we've worked on a bunch of small teams, and
I started out that way at ours. We did all of the first. I worked at ours for a year before I think I spoke to those people because, like, in 1998, voice comms over the internet were bad.
Oh, sure.
We mostly worked on like ICQ and IRC at that point.
Okay, so that's a pretty different experience that I've had then because, like, I had started at GameSpot. I freelanced for them, but I went there and it was very much a local, tight, in-person office culture. And then, like, especially thinking back to like the early days of Giant Bomb, like, I don't think any of that would have come about the way it did if we hadn't all been in this one small basement together. You know what I mean? I guess like where I'm going with this is like, how do you keep that spirit of organic collaboration and just like that culture of just like wandering over and seeing what people are doing and like kind of spitballing ideas and you know what I mean? Like it seems like that might be tough when everybody's spread out. Like you can only like Zoom happy hour so many times, right?
There's a little bit more of a, like, you have to be deliberate about it. I mean, so like part of the social stuff and getting to know your coworkers thing happens just because we do playtests 3 times a week. Like we do organized playtests at 10 o'clock in the morning. Everybody who's available jumps in, and like it's, when we say available, it's like if something's on fire, you should go do something else. But if you don't have, if you're not blocking a bunch of people, then you should go play and playtest because this is how we decide. This is how we make the game better. And so you have like an hour and a half every 3 times a week where you can kind of goof around and do stupid video game stuff with your coworkers. And that helps a lot. We also do like Friday afternoon. We've tried a bunch of different Friday afternoon stuff. Sometimes we just get in Discord and play games together, play co-op or multiplayer games together. We play Risk of Rain and Deep Rock and other co-op games, other multiplayer games. I think when that Quake thing landed, we played some Quake, we played some Halo, kind of whatever the game of the moment, often whatever is on Game Pass at any given time,
sure,
pops up. But it's and then like the meetings are a lot less freewheeling than they would be if we were in person. I think. I mean, we're pretty deliberate about culture, and it's a game studio, so we have a mixture of real extroverts and real introverts, and we've made a really concerted effort to make sure that the people that don't like talking in front of groups of people don't get squelched. So, for example,
can you define the term squelch?
Oh, squelch. So squelch on a CB is when you turn the thing that it's like the voice gate, the noise gate. So like,
okay,
you have to be louder to get past the squelch mark.
Oh, I didn't know that was a literal CB term. That's wild.
It's a radio term. Vinny could give you the ham radio definition, I'm sure, but
sure.
And I'm sure I messed that up, so I apologize. But the upshot is, like, when we do meetings where there's feedback or we're worried it's going to be divisive or something like that, then we have a couple of tools that allow like anonymous comments to come in and stuff like that. And, we use, God help us, we use Teams, which is not, it's bad for so many reasons. But the one thing that they do really well is the actual meeting stuff. Like the hand raise feature puts everybody in order, and we just go down the list of who has their hands up, and then people get to say their say, and we move on. We're flat, but we do owners for like big chunks of the game. So like we have a difficulty / director owner. We have gameplay owners. We have or gunplay owners. We have level design owners, stuff like that. And the rule is that we defer. We expect those people to get feedback from the group, but at the end of the day, we all trust everybody else. We all trust the owner of each particular thing to make the decision that they feel is best, and for whatever they're the owner because they're the person in the position to understand what's best for the game.
Yeah, I guess it's a slightly different model. I mean, obviously, like you guys have a product that you are going to deliver at the end of a period of years, right? Like versus like when I think back to like early Giant Bomb, it was like we were delivering a product every day or two, right? Like it was content was just going, pieces of content were going out in a stream, right? But like, I don't know. I think back to how many things we ended up doing that started as a joke,
Oh yeah.
It's just like somebody was bullshitting about something and not remotely serious about it. And then you sit there for a second and like, why do we actually do that? That kind of thing.
I mean, and that stuff still happens, right? Like we do, for example, like we have the game has perks that are distributed randomly through a device when you hit them in the game. And that literally started as, hey, what if we added somebody was like, hey, what if we added some modifiers to make this different every time, right? To give people a reason to come back and play again. And one of the engineers just went out and jammed them out and put them in the game when they were tested for the next test. And people went bonkers for them. People loved them. And then that became part of, like, we iterated through that and got to a point where like they didn't break any of the design pillars of the studio. And like players seem to really like them. So, it's interesting because I've worked on things like at ours, we were on a daily or sometimes even hourly cadence. At the magazine, we were on a every 3 to 4 weeks cadence. At Tested, we were on a daily cadence, right? Like it turns out I think I like working on a slightly longer cadence. I feel like, we're going to do, I don't know. I always say biweekly, but I think everybody thinks biweekly means twice a week. We're going to do we're starting with updates every other week. Is the goal cadence for the game once we get out of the kind of launch, let's smash bugs and quality of life as fast as we can get builds through cert phase.
Yeah, doesn't biweekly actually basically mean twice a week now? Like hasn't the dictionary officially picked that up as an alternate definition because it's futile at this point?
It's like irregardlessly in that they fucking caved to the
that's what
Philistines.
That's what I'm saying is if you look up biweekly, I think it will say both every other week and twice a week, which is just terrible. But anyway,
but yeah, but the upshot is we're like that stuff still happens, and like we have both. I mean, we intend to work on the game forever, right? This is the first season, but it's named season 0 because there's going to be more seasons, and they're all going to keep going in this game. We're not charging players for more stuff from Stray Bombay, right? If you want to, we don't want to bifurcate the audience by releasing new content that then puts you in like have and have not queues and makes matchmaking, like it's all going to be in there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be something we work on for a really long time, which actually is kind of freeing in a way, because it means that you can say, hey, like this is something we really want to have, but we're going to have to get to it later because we got to do all this other stuff first.
Sure. Do they even have the office anymore?
We still have the office.
Is that lease still on? Is that still on paper?
Yeah, we still have the office. I think Chet had bought a fish tank or was thinking about buying a fish tank to put in the office right before the pandemic, which was we really dodged a bullet there.
Yeah,
for the
fish dodged a bullet. Yes.
Yeah. I personally, I think, look, dentists are allowed to have fish tanks. Everybody else that has a fish tank in an office probably is some sort of evil genius. It's like a max power situation.
Yes. So I feel like I remember early on, like you were in charge of running playtests, right? Do I remember you were trying to run playtests with the game running on PCs like very far from here?
We did a lot of playtests.
So did you ever have to have, were those PCs in that office?
Those PCs are in that office. We have good internet in the office.
Did you ever have to have somebody go in there? And so this is what I actually would. Did you achieve the feat of never having to have somebody go in there and press a button for you? Did you do it all remotely?
Oh, so in order to do the initial installs of the client, somebody had to push the button.
Okay.
And occasionally, if something went janky and the machine would like reboot or like the graphics driver would lock up or something, and I couldn't access the machine remotely, several of our team, like one of our team members lives like 4 blocks away and likes to come into the office just because it's nice to be in a different place to work.
Yeah.
So he would occasionally mash a reboot button.
Okay.
For me.
I think you're allowed a graphics driver crash.
Yeah. Like for the most part, like if you wanted to play remotely on one of those machines right now, I could have it up and running in about 5 minutes.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And we had 4 of those. I don't think we ever had all 4 of them running at the same time. Some of the engineers use them for things that are computationally expensive or time consuming. Like if they want to do a light bake or something like that and don't want to tie up their machine for 10 hours, 4 hours, whatever it takes now, then we'll run those on those machines overnight or whatever and let them do their stuff. Keep using their computer for real work.
What were you using for remote administration? Just straight up remote desktop or?
No. So we're using Parsec. Parsec's great. We're using Parsec for Teams for all of that stuff.
Oh.
It integrates with our domain stuff, our Active Directory business, and lets us basically give access to external people. So we used it for external playtest. I also used it to capture marketing footage, so that we could get real players to play and have fun and yell and scream and do all the stuff that they do. And then we would just capture the footage locally with OBS.
Wow. So you were capturing from a Parsec window. So it was essentially, it was encoding on the remote end, sending to you, and then you were encoding it again.
Other way. So I had OBS running on the remote machine. I had the players playing over Parsec, and I was capturing OBS locally on the machine.
Oh, that makes way more sense.
Yeah. So then we would get high quality footage out of them, high bit rate.
That's smart.
And also I could upload, the 22 gigabyte file to my to our share server without me having to do it on my network at home, which is nice.
I'm going to mention real fast. I know very little about this. I just saw people on the Discord talking about it yesterday. Apache, Apache Guacamole.
Holy guacamole!
As far as I know, is the same Apache that makes the web server.
Okay.
It is a free and open source clientless remote desktop gateway. Apparently, it's quite hot.
Remote desktop gateway. Does that mean you run it on like a proxy machine and you can use it to get?
Well, I don't know what it runs on. It supports standard protocols like VNC, RDP, which is, I guess, remote desktop, and SSH. We call it clientless because no plugins or client software are required. It runs in a browser, is the point. That's why they call it clientless, because you can just run any browser with HTML5 and remote desktop into whatever. I kind of want to set it up. I just wanted to mention it. It sounds awesome.
So the low-key awesome thing about using Parsec and doing the remote testing like that is, like, we're making a PC and console game, right? Like we're on Xbox and we're on Game Pass, so we expect a pretty significant number of our players to be console players. And it's hard to recruit. It's really easy to give people a Steam key for external testing and have them download the thing. But most of those people are going to be mouse and keyboard players, or they're going to be at best kind of ambidextrous, but maybe prefer mouse and keyboard. If we wanted to get console, gamepad native players who don't like, it's hard to give, unless you have people with dev kits or test kits for the console. It's really hard to give a work in progress game for external testing to a console player. So what we were able to do is set up the Parsec client and have them set it up with the gamepad, and they were able to play remotely. And as long as they were kind of on the western half of the United States, it worked pretty well. We had a couple of Parsec people test it from the East Coast, and that was a little bit more dependent on the quality of their internet. But for the most part, like, people on the West Coast had no problem, had no complaints when we were testing. People as far away as Texas seemed to be fine. Once we got further than that, it got a little hinky. And if we were going to continue doing external tests with Parsec, I probably would set up on cloud services on either like EC2 or Google Cloud or something like that with big GPU instances and run it off of those rather than actual hardware machines in an office someplace.
That sounds like so much fun. Setting all that up would be so much fun.
It was neat figuring. It was fun figuring it out. Like the actual running it and keeping it going is a little up and down. And Parsec, frankly, Parsec actually just fixed this the other day, but they didn't have a good way to open up for when you're using Teams. Their old solution for inviting an external tester in was, hey, we're going to give you a ticket that costs X number of dollars, and those are consumables when you want to do an external playtest, which like I get where they're coming from, because it's like this is also the solution that some of the big game publishers used during the pandemic to do like demo days and stuff like that. And it kind of makes sense in that context, but in the context of we're a 20-person studio and we don't have infinite budget, costing X, 4 times X dollars per playtest was like it's not like realistically, when you balance it against the cost of the engineering, the human cost of us all gathering around to watch the playtests, which we did for the vast majority of them, it's pretty low, but it doesn't feel great.
Sure.
And they've actually since fixed that. There's now a hey, invite somebody external in role in the Parsec for Teams service, which is nice.
Cool. Games on Unreal Engine 4. Did you touch the Unreal Engine in any significant way? Did you dig in there and have to do Unreal Engine-y stuff? So
when I say I don't have skills, this is what I mean. One of the things I learned at Foo when because I had a Unity access there and was able to push stuff to our GitHub instance, our GitHub repos rather, is that I should never ever be allowed to push code into the repo.
Why is that?
Ever. I made some mistakes and cost people not a massive amount of time, but more time than I was comfortable with.
Hang on, were they code mistakes or Git mistakes? Because I feel
Git mistakes.
So you're saying you pushed over top of things you shouldn't have?
No, it was more that I just fucked up the repo in general. And
I see.
And then we had to look. If people who use Git know what I'm talking about, there's always a Post-it note next to somebody's monitor that's like, hey, if shit gets really bad, here's what you type in. We had to use the Post-it note, Brad.
I see. Never use the Post-it note.
You don't want to use the Post-it note. So the closest I came is doing all the Chet and I one afternoon did all the copy for localization. It turns out, here's the thing you don't think about. There's an unbelievable number of words in every video game you've ever played.
I believe it.
Menus, description of what the reason nobody ever puts description of what settings do in video games is because then you have to get them localized and they're technical terms and they're complicated and it's just a lot. So we have all of that in, all of the subtitles, all of the menu text, all of the pop-up text, all of the hover text, all of the friends list or not in-game friends list because we don't do that, but like the party join text and all that stuff. Error messages, all of that stuff has to be localized. And luckily, Tim, who rules, was the keeper of those tables. And then basically we would just give him, we use a wiki thing called Confluence, which is basically like a closed, it's not exactly a wiki, but it's kind of, it's the closest I've ever gone to having a wiki of my own, it turns out. That was a Whiskey Media joke for all of you.
Yes. Sorry.
People. Yeah, Dave.
Sorry. It's been so long that even I forgot about the whole tested needs a wiki thing.
Shout out to Dave.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. Apologies to tested.com.
But the upshot is it's where we keep our internal docs. So the engineer who writes the perks has a big long list, a page with a table with all of the perks that are in the game, and it has like the Unreal Engine, the tag in the Unreal Engine. It has the all the different descriptors that we might use in the game. It has the label text that needs to be localized. It has the description text that needs to be localized, and then it also has like the thumbnail image and stuff like that, or the icon that's used for it in the game and all that kind of stuff. I think menu items too for things that have like kill feed. Kill feed has to be localized. It's just it never ends.
Yes.
There's an infinite number of things that need to be localized.
Should I assume most or all localization is outsourced at this point? Like probably by necessity, right?
Big studios do localization in house because it turns out it's way more efficient if you're doing constant updates to like a big giant game.
Oh well, sure. I mean, obviously, like a Riot or a Bungie or
like Valve had people in house that even did it, and they're relatively small in that scale.
Yeah, right. Like multi-hundreds to thousands of people. Companies obviously have the resources to hire internally for stuff like that, but
yeah. But I mean, we do outsourced localization for that stuff, and then some of the partners do the localization, like of store pages and stuff like that for you.
Build servers.
You want to talk about build servers?
I wrote the phrase build servers in here. Listen, there's no greater joy in my life than starting a job. Like setting a thing up and pressing a button and watching it go. Whether it's like compiling a piece of software, running a script, like even just sitting and watching like cores bounce up and down as things happen. You know what I mean? Like just making a computer do a complex thing and just letting it rip. So I want to know what generating new build is like. I want to know what like compiling new build of the game is like. I don't know how much you actually got exposure to that process though.
I see the output of that fairly regularly because I do a lot of the Steam settings. Okay. I don't do the other end of it. Like, since I'm not pushing stuff to our Perforce instance or whatever, I don't know exactly what the process is. I know that we manually kick off builds when we want builds. There are also fixed builds at certain times of day that run based on whatever the current thing is. I believe that might have stopped now.
Do you know how long it takes? Could you ballpark like if you needed to produce a new build?
It depends based on what has been changed. So if there are like art changes in a level, it can take a long time because the light bakes have to happen and all that kind of stuff happens with that.
Sure.
Usually, I believe we do the light bake separately because it's time consuming and we don't want to type the build servers indefinitely.
So those can all be generated ahead of time.
Those can be generated ahead of time, then checked in and put in the right place, and the engine, the build server will look and be like, oh yeah, the light bake's here. That looks good. It seems like you start seeing output from the build server as shortly as like 20 minutes afterwards. Because the thing is, we have Xbox Series, Xbox One, Windows, Microsoft Store, Steam, and server clients, and the server are the things that get spit out. So they come out at different times. There's complexity about how those are made. You can dedicate machines to, like, you can run that in the cloud. You can run it on local metal. You can run multiple machines and dedicate one machine to a specific task. Like if we were on 8 platforms, we might have more machines because we need more different builds at any given time, if that makes sense.
Especially if you're on different architectures. I mean, I assume at this point there's no version of the game that doesn't run on x86, right? You can think of. I can't think of.
Well, the Xbox One doesn't, right? Isn't it?
No, that's like x86. Yeah. But I'm thinking, like a couple generations back, like the consoles were still RISC or PowerPC architecture and stuff like that.
We're not doing 360 or
no, obviously. I'm just saying I can't think of. There's nothing out there that it's not like there's some ARM based version of the game.
People who make Switch games have different architectures.
Yes, that is. What is? I think that is.
It's ARM. It's Tegra.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
right.
So it's like. But you can compile a ARM app on a x86.
Oh yeah,
machine.
you can cross compile. It's just more. It's more stuff to manage, I assume. Like, I mean, you guys are building stuff locally, not in the cloud. Like,
we have machines set up locally. Yeah.
Do you know? Is that basically just running on like commodity PC hardware these days?
Just normal ass computers.
Man, that's crazy. I'm just still thinking back to like. I'm sure on some level I'm always stuck in the 90s, but thinking back to reading about the id Softwares of the world buying like a giant DEC Alpha back in the day to do stuff like that, like heavy, like legitimate big iron type machines to do stuff like that. But you don't need that anymore, right?
So I was talking to Dorian, who's one of our level designers, and he does a ton of other things too. But they did that for light map baking back in the day. Now we can run those. The light map baking is GPU accelerated.
So that's awesome.
It goes a lot faster than it used to. I look at like our levels are relatively manageable compared to say like a PUBG or a Fortnite or something like that has a big giant outdoor area with lots of glass and lots of windows and infinite opportunities for rays to bounce in and come around places. Like I would be really curious to know what like a PUBG light map render system looks like, and they have 8 or 9 maps now and different times of day for each one. So if they make art changes to those maps, it's got to be something that they plan out well in advance. We don't have that. It's less complicated for us because it's indoor levels and a little bit more manageable.
Right. Gosh, what else is there to talk about? Any other fun tech stuff you had to do over the last few months? Like again, I just felt like every other week when we would get together to record, you'd be talking about, some script you had to write or some fun little tech puzzle to figure out.
I mean, it's weird because like my jobs are always like at the end of the day, sometimes I look up and I'm like, I have no idea what I did today, but I did like 20 little things.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that.
I don't think there's not any huge stuff. The like a lot of it is just, honestly, it's just like, hey, somebody has a problem with something and here's what can I do to help. I mean, I also do, like, ostensibly my job is communications.
I was going to ask, like, what is your actual title?
Yeah, so I'm the director of, we don't do titles internally, but I'm the director of communications on LinkedIn.
Like, we don't either. Of course we don't, obviously. But even a giant bomb, like, once we got into a corporate hierarchy, we had to have something, right? But prior to that, it was just like, who fucking cares? Like, we're just here doing a job, whatever.
Yeah.
But you realize very quickly, even when you're in a situation like that internally where it doesn't matter, like you realize almost instantly once you start interacting with the outside world, like people want you to call yourself something, right?
Yeah. So like the last couple of weeks for me have been talking to streamers and talking to press and playing games with people. I came and played Anacrusis with you all on Nextlander on what, Tuesday or something?
Monday.
Yeah. It seems like an eternity ago.
Yes.
But I did a lot of that. Chet and I both did a lot of that this week. We've been playing with community a ton. I set up the how to stream to the Steam page thing yesterday, which was really fun because we were playing with streamers and we were running archives of other playthroughs with streamers and friends and community members and stuff like that on the Steam page. It turns out it's just an RTMP feed with a bunch of weird requirements about the video that go onto the Steam page. What else? I don't know. I spent a lot of time on the Steam forums deleting bad posts from angry people who haven't played the game, it seems like, for the most part. I spent a lot of time in our Discord helping people with problems. I set up Zendesk. That was exciting.
So what do we got here? We got public relations, support, influencer relations, community management,
press.
Yes,
we work with an external PR agency too, so that's been really great. They've been incredibly helpful.
It seemed like at one point you were doing like fielding a lot of calls with other territories. Like I remember, like, you had a call at 10 p.m. at night with, I forget which country.
Oh, we have partners. I mean, we were talking to publishers in different regions. We have partners. You were working with Overwolf for mod stuff in the future, and they're based in the Middle East in Israel, so like time zones are challenging for them. I help Chet with biz dev stuff sometimes just because I've done that in the past, and like it's always nice to have two people in those conversations so that like you can go, did they really say that? Oh, they really said that. Okay,
does that mean what it sounds like?
Yeah. But yeah, it's been like, I don't know. It's always like for me professionally, I've always been a generalist, right? Like I know how to do a lot of things pretty well, but I'm definitely not like I'm a multi-tool, not a specific tool.
Yeah.
So it's really been great for me as a role so far.
That's very much been my experience of work for most of my career as well. And like, that's what I enjoy because it's just a lot of variety, right?
Yeah. I like doing something different every day, and I like talking to people, and these are all things I get to do in the current role. So
the thing I would love to ask about, which we probably can't get into now or maybe ever, is CMSs.
You want to talk about CMSs?
there's nothing I would love more than to like upload a build of a game to Xbox Live or the PlayStation Network or something. Like set up a store page, or I mean, like I've been publishing website stuff since 2002 or whatever.
It's pretty much like that, but made even more by engineers and less by humans. Would actually, be my advice.
When you put it that way, maybe it's less glamorous. Like,
it's
like I've uploaded 10 bajillion JPEGs to websites and published them. I've put a bunch of text in and published that. I've mixed the two together. I've never uploaded a build of a video game before.
Well, but I don't ever get to upload the build of the video.
I'm sure.
The build server does that.
Yes. Is that actually all just automated at this point?
Oh yeah, that's all just happens in the back. Like that. Like so, basically. Okay, so
I figured it spit out like some kind of bundle or package thing that you then had to manually kind of sync with whatever storefronts.
So on some platforms, that's how it works. I will tell you, I feel like this is probably safe to talk about, but hopefully I don't get in trouble. On Steam provides a series of command line tools. It's very similar to the stuff they use for like Linux GSM to download.
Yeah. Steam command is public. Like anybody can actually grab that and mess with it. So that should be fine to talk about, I would assume. I'm sure I can give you clearance for how to communicate your job.
Thanks, Gabe Brad. So yeah, the Steam command stuff, I assume is how we upload the stuff from the build servers to Steam. And then you go into the Steam backend and it has a list of, I think they call them depots or builds or something like that, that basically you say, hey, I want to put this one on this branch of, the beta page in Steam, where if somebody said like, hey, I want you to try an early release of my game, here's a key, go to this page, type this code in, press the blue button, you get access to the beta branch of whatever game it is. Each of those is a build on a depot and a back end of the Steam UI. And it's just a drop down. You're just like, hey, I want build 22859 to be the default branch. And then you press that button and all of a sudden everybody who has access to the default branch has that. Like Steam, they get a little Steam update thing within the next 30 or 40 seconds and start downloading the game. And it's friggin' bonkers.
Okay. Yeah, you're kind of bringing me back down to earth a little bit as you describe drop downs and so forth. Like, it's like, okay, yes, I've used many CMSs in my life. This sounds like another one.
I will say that the thing so I pressed the button for Steam yesterday because we were dealing with some stuff and I was the one who had time. You press a big green button that says, hey, prepare, ready for launch. And then it's like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Type this in. And it's like a passphrase.
Okay.
And then you have to press enter and click the button. And then the game goes out to everybody on Steam. And like, it was funny because it was available for sale so quickly that I didn't get to go. I had the message that the game was live pasted into Discord. And by the time I switched from the Steam window after it was like, after the little thing spun, it was like, okay, you're all good. And I clicked over to Discord. People were already like, it's live, go download it. So that's like on the other platforms for the most part, just it happens automatically, I think. So
okay.
That's based on the times you set in advance and all that stuff.
That's a different kind of fun.
Here's the other fun thing that nobody thinks about. All of those images. So if you ever meet somebody who's like, hey, I work on graphic design for games, give them a hug. Because
I bet the range of dimensions and aspect ratios and stuff they're having to satisfy is endless.
Sweet mother. There are so many different ranges. There's so many different resolutions. And like the documentation's great. Like the platforms do a pretty good job saying, hey, this is where this is going to show up. But inevitably you get the game out and you're like looking on one of the platforms and you're looking on the store page. You're like, oh crap, this is the picture without the logo. It's the picture with the key art, but without the name or the logo. And this one should definitely be the one with the logo. So then you have to go into the CMS and figure out which one that is, and then update it and push it back to public. And it's a process. But I have a folder. I will tell you how many. I have a folder that's like 5 subfolders deep with all the different marketing images for the different storefronts in a bazillion different resolutions and aspect ratios. And our UX designer, UI designer Bailey helped me by making this amazing series of nested Photoshop scripts that all use links to all sorts of other, like it uses links to the core source key art and then generates all of the sub files using those links, using Photoshop links in a way that I've never seen anybody do before, and it is magic.
That sounds cool as hell. That almost makes me wonder. I mean, maybe this already exists. If there's like room for sort of either middleware or third-party services, I guess I would call it, like a third-party company to handle that layer for you. Just say like, hey, we will grease all the wheels of getting all this art made and getting all these things onto the right storefronts, and like you won't have to think about any of the meeting requirements of platforms things. There
are definitely, I'm sure at big publishers they have services. Tools for this stuff built up.
That kind of goes. I think that goes without saying. Like big publishers do all of this stuff themselves, right?
I mean, it's a weird task because it's the thing you do. Like, I mean, how often do you change the key art for your game? It's like maybe you might do something special for like a big holiday update or something like that. But for the most part, like you do the key art and then you don't touch it.
Yeah.
So I would be curious to hear if people know of the other solutions. I do know that at like big studios, like there are as many people working on getting screenshots and getting video and the tools that they use to. So like we don't have a screenshot tool in the game just because it's a multiplayer game. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it makes getting screenshots really like you have to just get lucky versus setting up the scene the way you want it or pausing the game when you have a good action moment happening and then finding the right camera angle or whatever your strategy happens to be.
Is there no tool in UE4 to kind of help?
There is, but it requires, like it's always with a small team, especially it's always how many is this worth a programmer spending 2 days, an engineer spending 2 days figuring out? And the answer is probably no, especially since as we're launching in early access, my guess is that my hope is that will change over the time that we're in early access.
I do have to tell you that you join a long line of people that I have known who have been in a position to have to take screenshots of games, talking about how taking screenshots of games is the hardest thing ever.
So it's a 4-player game. We want to have pictures of other players in the screenshots, getting other players to position themselves right, getting the alien, like I'm just jealous of people who have deterministic games. So they know, okay, this moment in Breath of the Wild where you walk out of the thing and you see the whole kingdom of Hyrule laid out in front of you. That's a cool moment. We should take a screenshot of that. That sounds great. Yeah. Our stuff spawns in different places every time. There's always different enemies. They jump based on what the AI thinks they should do. It's challenging, Brad. Yeah.
Especially, I mean, you guys are a small team, but I've definitely heard like larger games, or especially when there is some kind of external rights holder involved. Getting the approvals process of taking shots and having them shot down and then having to take more just over and over and over sounds like a lot.
Well, look, the thing that I am grateful for is we are an indie studio, so that's the people we're beholden to are us, and we do not have a publisher or a partner that's saying, hey, we want approval on everything that you say and do. So that is really good. And then the other fun stuff, like I wrote an Xbox Wire article the other day, which is really funny because I've seen those for years.
Like that seems kind of cool to do as well.
It was like a fun, easy thing to do, and I sat down and jammed it out one afternoon. I was like, I used to do this. I remember I used to do this stuff.
I kind of had a similar feeling when I wrote my Game of the Year top 10 a couple weeks ago. I was like, I used to do this.
Yeah, still got it, baby.
Yep, that's right.
So yeah, that's it. The game's out. Yeah. We wanted to do. Like the big thing that I've been doing a lot of, and I'm going to communicate it here because I don't want people to go like try the game out. It's on Game Pass, so you can just try it. I don't want people to get the wrong, like we're an early access / game preview, depending on which platform we're on title. And like the brunt of the reason we launched that way is because we want feedback on like level design and gunplay and gameplay and director difficulty and like all of the parts that make the game. We feel like the core game is in a really good spot, given where we are in development, and we think it's really fun. Like if you get on the game with 3 friends and get on voice and you have a beer and you shoot some aliens, you're gonna have a good time. We do also know that there's a ton of stuff around that core kind of gameplay nugget that needs a lot of work, and that's going to happen gradually over the next over 2022. Realistically, we're planning to leave early access by the end of the year, and we have 2 episodes to add to the game. We want to add mods. We have modders working on it already. We have two different level creators working right now. So we have a new mod campaign hopefully coming out before too long. And then mod tools and, you know, all the other stuff that comes with a launch of a game like this coming this year. So it's like, you know, this isn't going to be, it's not a finished product. It's an early access in the sense of we are doing this because we want to collect feedback, because it's a game that's hard for us to test and get real feedback on internally. And external testing doesn't, the way I was doing it before, the way we were doing it before with the people on Parsec and whatever, doesn't scale as fast as we wanted to. So we want players to get in and bang at it and see what works and see what doesn't for us.
Cool. Well,
help us make it better.
Yeah. Congratulations on reaching this milestone. Obviously the game's not done, so you're not done. But
the game's never going to be done, Brad. It's not that kind of game, but hopefully we'll get to a place where everybody can play and have a good time. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. We just want people to, like, the whole point. You don't make a game if you don't want people to have fun. We want people to have a good time.
Maybe you don't.
No, I look. Okay.
Actually, I mean, now that you mention it, the freedom to make a game that nobody ever had to play sounds kind of awesome, actually. Like,
well, I was always really interested. What's the game that, like, it's just a case that gets sent around and there's one copy of it. You send it to the next person. They can choose to send it on or not. It's been moving around, and I don't know. It feels like something Patrick wrote about a few years ago.
Sounds like some kind of urban legend.
I mean, that's also entirely possible. At this point, I could be hallucinating. Who knows?
Game development legends.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show this week, Brad. This was really great.
It's good to have you here. Yeah, maybe we'll have you back in a few months.
I mean, I'm still gonna be working on the game, I think. So
yeah.
And again, just to, like, I want to reiterate this because it's important, but, like, it is a team of really, really smart people, and I am the doofus who stands up in the Discord and asks questions and talks to people and, like, you know, figures out how to point a subdomain at a partner's website without having to use CNAMEs because our hosting provider is weird. You know, I don't do anything real.
God, I actually didn't think about how intimidating it probably is to work with a bunch of people who are so specialized in these very highly complex disciplines.
Well, but also, a lot of them are also generalists in ways that are really interesting. So, like, you know, the person who like, people have released games of their own before. We have people who were indie developers on different scales, and people who worked at huge studios that you've heard of, and you know, it's just really cool. It's a good group of people.
Very good.
So I guess this is the time where we thank our patrons.
Thank you, patrons. Now it feels like a regular podcast again.
Thanks, patrons. But no, Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod is a 100% listener supported show, and we really appreciate everybody all of the patrons who support us by going to patreon.com/techpod. Again, that's patreon.com/techpod. And there you can gain access to the fabulous TechPod Discord, which is full of beautiful, beautiful people. I was really excited to see that they'd made an Anacrusis looking for group channel the other day, which is fun.
Yes. I had someone messaged me literally yesterday just saying, hey, the server rules. They had just gotten help with, I think, setting up an audio interface. It is yeah. It's a heartwarming community.
It's a good group of people. We have good conversations there all the time, whether it's about space stuff or cars or fixing your home or whatever.
Or my 66 cans of sardines.
Oh yeah, man! Those Alabama sardines were really cheap, man.
What?
Did you see that? Somebody was posting pictures of your sardines, and they were $1 a can in Alabama or someplace in Louisiana.
Is that where those were? Alabama
or Louisiana? I can't remember. They were someplace in the South.
Look, we do what we can here.
Yeah,
$1.54 a can. That's, you know, I feel pretty good about it.
That's pretty good. That's a good deal. I think that's a good sardine deal.
And I've calculated.
Yes,
if we eat a can. What was the number? I believe if we eat one can every 16.59 days, we will eat them all before they expire.
So, I mean, if you can't knock down a can of sardines every 2 weeks and 2 days,
it's nothing. I've been forbidden so far from opening my own can, however. Granted,
it's a split ski?
We just got the bulk shipment in like 2 days ago, to be fair. Okay. We haven't even cracked into those yet, but I've never been allowed my own can. It's always been we're to split this.
So Did you ever go to Kakari, the Greek place down by the whiskey office on Front Street?
Oh, that name sounds familiar.
It's a fancy Greek restaurant. Lots of times, like people, this is totally off topic, and we'll get back to thanking patrons in a sec. It's a Greek place. It's a fancy Greek place. It's like the suit and tie crowd from the financial district comes in and sits down there for dinner. And
okay, yeah, we never went to sit down rest. Like our Games Press lunch is go get the food and get back to your desk as fast as possible and eat it and then get back to work.
Oh, no. I mean, if somebody was like, hey, I want to come, I want to show you something. Do you want to grab dinner afterwards? Yeah.
Entertaining some kind of relationship. Okay.
I feel like Gene and I also went there for our anniversary or something. If you're in San Francisco, it is a very good restaurant. They do a sardine there.
Ooh.
That is maybe the best sardine I've ever had.
A fancy sardine?
How big sardine.
How big is an actual sardine?
Like a big one?
Like a full size sardine? Like
I don't know, like a foot probably.
Okay, all right.
It comes on a longish plate.
Mm.
You can eat it bone in because the bones kind of, they're not substantial. And it was grilled with some stuff like some olives and some tomatoes and stuff inside. It was delish. It took me longer than it should have to get here, but I have fully decided that Mediterranean cuisine is my all-time unassailable favorite cuisine. I think it's the best part about living in Northern California is we get all the olives and the cheese and all that stuff here. Yeah. Anyway, I can't eat any of that stuff right. Anyway,
I'm sorry. I totally forgot about that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Thank you, patrons. We really do appreciate you. And we whether you can support the channel or not, we really appreciate tweets and Discord messages and all letting your friends know about the show.
Yeah, spread the word.
We especially, of course, appreciate our executive producer tier patrons, including Paddle Creek Games, makers of Fractured Veil, Andrew Slosky, #BunnyCrimes, Jacob Chappell, Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. I always say thank you very meekly. I don't want to get in the way of you reading the list and stuff, but thank you.
No. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll enunciate more.
Thank you. You think you do emphasis on the thank or the you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. But that'll do it for us this week. Thank you. Now it sounds weird when I say it.
You gotta stop saying it now.
What? Thank you, Brad.
No, never stop saying thank you.
No. We will be back next week with another episode of Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I hope everybody has a lovely, lovely weekend, and maybe check out the Anacrusis. It's pretty good.
Hey, you can never say that again. I'm not on this show.
Bye.